Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Eating at a Meeting. I am your host, Tracy Stuckrath, and September is Food Safety Awareness Month, and I am here with another episode talking about food safety with Belinda Vaca. I did this right. She is the mother of Sergio Alexander Lopez and an advocate for food allergy awareness. And we're going to hear from her and her story and what she's doing food safety-wise related to food allergies. So welcome to the show, Belinda.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. So can you tell everyone tell the story of Sergio and the incident that led to your advocacy for food allergy safety?
Okay. On June 25th, 2014, my only child, Sergio Lopez, went out to eat lunch, and he's a vegetarian. He went to a health food restaurant with his girlfriend, and he ordered a veggie taco. He was, even though he's a young man, 24 years old, he was like an old soul. He was a hypochondriac, people would say, because very cautious since he was 3 years old. And so he asked, does this have any peanuts? And they told him, no, just spices. When he received the taco to go, he asked again, does this have peanuts? No, just spices. He took the taco to go, and while he was eating it, he felt a tingling in his mouth. His girlfriend, Gabby, said. So he called. It was on his telephone. He spoke to him over a minute and a half. And he called, and they again, I guess they must have put him on hold for a while, and they told him, no, we told you, just spices. Well, she told him, why don't we go to emergency? And he says, oh, no, I'm always going to emergency. My mom, says, I'm a hypochondriac. He goes, they told me it doesn't have it. I'm always thinking there is. And she goes, okay. So she left. A few minutes later, he walks into where he was working. He taught music, one of his three part-time jobs while going to school. And his last words, he was holding his throat. He said to his boss, David Rios, they lied to me. They lied to me, holding his throat. And they saw him, how he was turning. They called the ambulance. They're meeting the man. They said, no, start driving. So one of his coworkers got in the car, and he's in there. And she says, while he's in the car, he's banging the window, the front of the car. He cannot breathe. And she's on the phone the whole time with the ambulance, and they're meeting him. This is in McAllen, Texas. And he sees an ambulance behind him. He goes, it's them. She goes, no, they said it's not them. And so he opens the car. She stops, and he runs out and he collapses. It was a private ambulance. They didn't even stop. By then, the ambulance that they were talking to from the regular ambulance, they get there. It's within less than 5 minutes. She says they do CPR on him, and they take him to the hospital there in McAllen. I'm at work, and I get a call, and they says your son's in the hospital. And I told them at work it was about 3:30 or so, and then I said, I says, I'll be right back. I'm just going to pick up my son from the hospital. His asthma or something, I would go to the hospital maybe 12 times a year, and it was usually never serious. They would check him out, and they says, they give him a steroid shot or calm him down. And because would react. He always thought, he would have panic attacks even because of it, thinking, oh no, this has peanuts. I go to the hospital thinking I'm there to pick him up. And they said, no, Miss Vaca. And they walked me to his room where he's at. And he's in a coma. I had never seen anybody in a coma, never knew anybody in a coma. My only child, 24, I see him with all these tubes. I didn't know what to do. It's like, how is this happening? And I just like collapsed. I was just like, what's going on? Within 30 minutes, they said, we're going to transport him to the hospital next door. And I told them, I don't care what it takes. I'll sell my house, transport him to Houston. I don't know. I want the best for my son. I will I have health insurance. I have, I'm a federal employee. Please do not think, that I'll do anything. I will sell my house. Just please, I want the best for my son. We are doing the best, they're telling me. As a mother, you're just thinking, I don't care. I want whatever. At this time, I had not known about any food allergy groups. I was on Facebook, but I didn't know anybody who had another food allergy. It's, like my son, a young man. I had an aunt, my mom's sister, my Aunt Tommy. She was allergic to everything, but she lived to the 88 years old. She never had any issues. They weren't very serious, but I didn't know anybody else, nobody in his school. And so the next day I went to that restaurant. And when I asked them at that restaurant, I went my coworkers and some of his friends, they ordered the taco. And since they also did cooking class, and they asked, oh, I'd like to take this cooking class. Will you teach how to make this taco? What's in it? The owner came out and he's very proud. Said, oh, yes, it's my wife's secret recipe. We'll teach. Secret recipes, peanut butter. I just like, and I just was, and I could not talk. I was like, at first, I was just in shock. And my Patty, one of the coworkers, she said, her son died this morning at 1:00 in the morning. He was at your restaurant yesterday at 2:00 with Gabby. And he asked you before he ordered the taco, when he received it, while he was eating it. And you always said, no peanuts, just spices. And his response was, he asked for peanuts. This has peanut butter.
Oh my goodness.
Ignorance. And I said, I don't ever want this to ever happen again. But I didn't realize that there were so many people afterwards getting on these food allergy Facebook groups. Her name is Lisa Rudder, I believe is her name. And she has on her a list of all the children and adults that have died of food allergies within the last 15 years. But that next day, during the week, I didn't know who to call. I was like, this cannot happen. I called FDA. Food. And the lady who answered was so nice to me because I was, in tears and like ignorant and saying, what can we do? My son died. This shouldn't be happening, and I told her what happened. And she told me, she goes, do you know about, and she started telling me about all these food allergy groups on Facebook. Wow. And she said, you need to reach out to them. And which I did. And the first one who reached out to me was Georgina, excuse me, I mispronounced her name, Georgina Cornagro. She is from, I believe, New Jersey, and her son died the year before at home. And she reached out and she told me about everything, what she was doing and all these other groups. So I got connected and I told her, and And she told me about all the groups. Well, my coworkers, they're attorneys. I had applied. My son was going to graduate that December in mechanical engineer. And he says, Mom, I'm leaving the Valley, which they call McAllen, the Valley. He goes, I'm going to Austin because his passion was music. He played 4 instruments, guitar, cello, bagpipes, and keyboards. And he's saying he wrote his own music. He goes, I'm going to try to make it music, but don't worry. I have my engineering. If I don't, as my backup, but I'm going to try to make it in music in Austin. And I says, well, if you're leaving, I'm going to follow you. And I told my husband, who I just met, I raised my son as a single mom until he was 18 and went off to college. And I told my husband, and I says, I want to move. If my son, he goes, well, it's up to you. If you want to go, let's go. My work I could find anywhere. It's in construction. So I applied 2 days before he died to where I worked to the Western District. I was working Southern District U.S. attorneys, and I applied as my IT. I got in. And I think it was, I'm a believer in God and I'm a Christian, and my office was 2 blocks from the Capitol, Texas Capitol. And I said, this was place for me. And when my attorneys, Holly Reed and Patty Grigney, who I work with, they're not my personal, but I say I call them, who I work with, they said, Belinda, you could do this. You go to the Capitol, because I kept telling, I don't know what to do. I was IT. I didn't know anything about law. They go, you could go, you make a law. And I'm like, what? Yes, you go off there and you advocate. And I was like, okay, I was like, what are So I start walking to the, Texas only meets every 2 years. So I start, and I start telling my story. I started with all the representatives and senators from the Valley. And I thought they would have more, feel more passion since my son died in the Valley. And they listened to me at first. And the media came out, and I think that's why they listened. But the first one who took my bill was Senator Lucio.
Okay.
And the reason he did, his grandson was allergic to peanuts. He was in the time in high school. So that's why he had that was, I feel, the reason he took it. But I was so excited because I got a bill number, and I'm like, oh no, I got this already. My first year in 2015, in January, I got a bill number, and I was so excited, thinking, I'm telling my family and friends, I got this, the bill's going to be passed. This was 2015. Well, I didn't know all the steps. And his people that I work with, I just met him at one time, but I worked with his clerks, and they go, it might be 20 years.
Wow.
They go, you don't have an organization, do you? You're just by yourself. If you had a group behind you, and I'm like, I didn't know what. And the following year, other people found out what I was doing. And one of them was Susan, and she worked with FAIR, and these other groups. And so they were working on other bills for food allergies, like daycares. And so little by each year, I got a step. When I first started, I wanted the moon, everything. I said, I want all restaurants to have their menus labeled. Well, I found out that was impossible to get. And so there's so many steps, after you get your bill number, then it goes to it went to a health committee. The first year they didn't call me to meet, the health committee didn't call me. The following year I did, each year I got a little further, and I was always so excited. And I would go and I would pass out a flyer, and I would say, please support the Sergio Lopez Allergy Awareness. I called it law, but later I found out it's supposed to be act. As I said, I didn't know. And then I said to protect citizens potentially with food allergies. And then I would give them the bill number. And then I had, at the time, it was through the Senate, SB, and then HB. And each year I had to start all over.
Wow.
In 2017, Philip Cortez came, and he also sponsored my bill. And Lucio, he retired, so I didn't have anybody in the Senate side. So each year I was thinking, he got in 2019 a bill passed for me that EpiPens are allowed in public places. But the thing is, the bill has passed, but no media or nobody, there's no restaurants that know about it. Every time I go to a restaurant, I tell them about it. To a park district. Oh, I didn't know that. I go, yes, that bill. I go, legally before you needed a prescription, but now with this bill passed, you could have these in public places. But they don't know about it.
No.
So I was so pleased with this bill. I had a Senator Sabrini, from Laredo. She passed it in the Senate side, and it passed very easy. But in the House in Texas, they made it political because the Cortez was a Democrat. The Republicans, they were fighting. I was so close 2 weeks before the deadline, they were going to call it, and somebody called a point of order. And I was up there, and I go, what is this? They go, oh, they do that when they're trying to kill a bill. I look, why? This bill there's nothing political about this bill. This bill is just trying to save lives, bring awareness at restaurants that they know about food allergies are fatal, to have training for them. Why are they making this political? Well, that's how it runs here, how it happens here in Texas. Well, I broke down up there, and so I went. What happened was Philip Cortez clerk came up and said, I go, why? Who did this? And she gave me his name. I went to his office. I was very calm. I didn't know how he looked like. I went to office talking to the clerk. Well, he was sitting on the couch. They had just finished their session. And I says, I would like to give you this. I've given to you this flyer before, but I want you to know about my son. I want you to give it to the representative and to ask him why he called a point of order. Why? There's no reason. I said, and he was sitting there on the couch, and he stood up, and I was in tears, and he goes, I'm so sorry. This is nothing against you. Nothing against you, Bill. He did. And
wow.
I was, like, as I said, I was in tears and crying, and I'm from Chicago, and I grew up in the city, south side of Chicago. I was like, Lord, please hold back, keep my tongue, bite your tongue, be calm. Do not let the city come out in you. And I was very calm. And then when I told me, I was just in tears, and my voice, I was holding back, and I have a high-pitched, squeaky voice, and I know that I've always had that. And he says, ma'am, I am going to do my best to make sure this gets back on. He goes, wow, you are, the way you have grace. And I was like, no one's ever told me that. He goes, the way you hold yourself, he goes, I'm going to make sure. And I will. And sure enough, my representative, Erica Weiner, she did everything to get it back on the committee within days for it to be fixed. It was something about in the Senate that they did and that the House didn't approve of. They had it fixed. It got back on because they were, on the calendar. And I was like, oh, well, that day on May, which it was at the bottom of the list. I think I was like, I think there was 150 and I was like, I don't know, 101 or something. It was way at the bottom of the list. Well, it was 4:00 and only 5 bills had been heard.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So I went to the Cortez office and I says, I guess I'll be back here in 25. And I says, I hope he still sponsors my bill. Oh, yes, Miss Vaca, now we know. And I says, she goes, I know it's 5:00 and they're just prolonging everything. Well, I came home, put dinner on the table. I turned on my laptop. Then it was like 6:30. Well, they had already heard 30 bills between the time I left and an hour and a half. All day between 11 and 5 bills had been heard. And between 30 bills, they went real quick.
Wow.
And I was like, I guess, a lot of them, they called point of order. They took them off. And so I told them, I'm going back. Well, I'm going back to the Capitol. I go, I got a chance. And it was 11 and I was still like 15 or so. They went boom, boom. He came up, that representative that called the point of order. He says, don't worry, we're going to get it. You're going to be heard tonight.
Wow.
And sure enough, at 11:20, they called my bill.
PM.
Yes. And they only had to midnight. I was thinking, I'm going home. This isn't happening. I'm like, but they called it at 11:20 p.m. We only had to midnight. That was the deadline. And so it was at the last minute. Then they told me Governor Abbott had to sign the bill. And he was upset with the House, something about a bill he's trying to get a bill trying to get money for private schools here and take away money from the public schools. So since people weren't passing it, he goes, I'm not passing bills. So he was taking bills off from the House. And I was like, oh no, what if he takes my bill off? Because he hadn't signed it. Well, if he did not sign it, he never signed it. But I was like, oh, every day I kept looking to see if he was, taking it off. He didn't take it off. So automatically, even though he didn't sign it, it became law. September 1st.
Yep.
2023. And they have, all restaurants have until September 1st of 2024 to have a food allergy awareness poster up in their kitchen. So now is my next thing. I said, since I have have this, I go, what's next? I said, I'm retired. I'm 64 years old. It's so hot here in Texas. I can't be out in my garden anymore very much. It's 110. Everything died this year on me. I says, well, I'll work on getting this federal. And I says, if it takes me 20 years, but now I have a lot of people. I was in People's Magazine, Telemundo, a Mexican, which is national. They talked about it. And also here in the States, in Texas, they put out, let everybody know about this. So I said, now I have all this publicity. Hopefully it will help me to go federal. And that's my next thing. I have a lot of people reaching out to me. How can I help? So I'm going to wait till after the elections in November and start my campaign to try to get it. And like I said, it might take me 10 years, and I'm willing to go to D.C. and knock on their doors and pass out my flyer to every representative and senator in D.C. Take a week or two to do that, and then keep doing it every year. But thank God they don't meet once every 2 years. Yeah. So that's my next step. Just a lot of people, some people were upset that it's just a poster. But I said, that's what we start with, just to bring awareness, because a lot of people do not know that food allergies at restaurants, that it's fatal. They confuse it with gluten or sensitive stomach. It is not the same thing. And that's the biggest hurdle, is just to bring that awareness. And there's a food handler's test, which anybody who works at a restaurant, they do not talk about. They didn't about food allergies before. But now on the food allergy test, there's something very basic that they all have to take, every waitress and anyone who works at restaurant. Now it's going to talk about food allergies. Then, talking about the top, allergens, talking about that it is fatal, talking about cross-contamination, that you cannot use the same oil, you cannot use the same pan or utensils. They will know about that, so I feel, people want more. They want like the Natasha, like in UK, where all the menus are labeled. But people fight, I would get letters from people who knew about in the past telling me on my Facebook, oh, government's just trying to control. I don't know how they confused this, trying to save lives, that the government is trying to control people by just putting awareness. I don't know how they get, I don't see that, but some people do. They see that by making awareness, just making awareness. I'm not telling people, I'm not trying to control that you do not take away peanuts and eggs and dairy and sesame, all the top allergens and nuts from. No, I'm just saying bring awareness, and be sensitive to the fact when people say I do have food allergies, that people are sensitive to the fact at the schools now, so many people, daycare, it's not allowed anymore.
And adults
do.
Yeah, and there's so many adults that have food allergies. So your work is really,
and it has, when 1 out of 13 children have food allergies now, and now they're saying 1 out of 15 adults,
1 out of 10 adults, actually. Yeah.
And now what's happening? It's happening as you get older. My mom, at 80 years old, she found out she was allergic to eggplants when she went out to eat at Italian restaurant. She was never allergic. That was her favorite food, eggplants. And then they thought she was having a heart attack. Found out it was a food allergy, that she was allergic to eggplant. So we could be at 64, I could get a food allergy, which I was never allergic to before.
Right. Yeah. And your point is so well taken, is that it is just awareness, and it's not, there are people who don't like mushrooms to this or whatever, but there's so many things that people are allergic to. So we've got a comment here. Oh no, never mind. We're not going to share this. I'm expecting soon to be a mom, and food allergies scare me so bad. And so she's, her name is Chloe. Sorry, Chloe. And then somebody else just posted in here, the bill has now been in effect for less than a month. How is the state or other body getting the posters into the hands of restaurants, and into the hands of owners? So I think they are still, and I reached out to the Texas Department of Health, and I'm waiting some answers back, but they have the Texas Department of Health is actually putting the poster together, and they have until September 1st to get the poster of next year to get the posters up. So it is a work in progress right now, but
in fact, I was a young man from the Valley, and he's from the public health, and he asked me, they're having a meeting in December with the public health inspectors here in Austin. And so I think they invited me to speak. So the word is getting out. It's, and I live in a small little town near Austin called Buda. And so my goal is, I have these fair posters. I'm passing them out here at the restaurant, letting them know about the law and telling them this is it. I know this isn't what Texas has published yet, but this, something similar, to let them know about it, trying to get the word out,
Well, okay, somebody just said up here, this is hysterical. Miss Vaca, don't be afraid to let the Chicago come out. You need to share your story. You're so true. I mean, there are so many children and people who have died from food allergies. So your mission, and I think it's It's so important. And you're a mom and you lost your kid 9 years ago. And it took you this long and you did not relent. And Mr. Cortez, I know I read it in the article in the People magazine saying that you were there every single day.
Yeah. And now that I'm older, I have arthritis in my knees and, frozen shoulder. So it was this year was kind of sad that every time people would say, oh, do you need to sit down? Do you need water? I'm like, do I look that old already? And I said, maybe that, I'll use that, so when I go to DC, they'll see this little, because I'm short, I'm 4'11", little Hispanic old lady, and they'll say, oh, poor lady, feel sorry for me. I'll say, I'll use whatever I have to play on the strings, if that's what it takes, me being a 4'11", little old Hispanic lady trying to get sympathy for them to pass my bill. I'll use it, because every place I went, do you need to sit down? Because I'm limping, it was time for my glucosamine shot and my gelson shot. And so I couldn't get it yet. I didn't get. So I was limping through the halls, at Texas. But I said, it might take me longer to get from one office, but I'm doing it. And maybe when I get to DC, I might have to be in a cane. Who cares? If I have to walk with the cane or whatever, I'm knocking on doors and letting them know. Because to me, this shouldn't be happening. And it every year, I'm shocked when I look at Lisa's rudder. She has a list, people. And I tell, it's, when at Halloween, I have my teal pumpkins out, and people sometimes in my neighborhood, they think because I'm one of the 40 Hispanics in my neighborhood, they go, is that an Hispanic thing, those blue pumpkins? And I'm like, no. So I get to tell my story when I'm passing out the candy. I sit out in front of my house because they're always asking me, why do I have all these teal pumpkins? Is it an Hispanic thing? And I'm like, no. And I tell them the reason what teal pumpkins are for. And they go, oh, and then they tell me, oh, my child is allergic. And I tell him the story of my son, and not to scare him. And I never tell my story if there's a child nearby, because I don't want that child to get scared and have. My son had panic attacks, pregnant at 16, and I think it's because of food allergies. And I talked to many parents that the children have food allergies, and of course, any child who knows I could die of this have panic attacks,
Right.
And so scary that you could die from eating, of course. And so I never tell my story to a mother with the child nearby, but I always tell her, I talk, lower my voice, and I tell them, you need to get onto these food allergy groups. Do you carry your epi? You need to have 2 epis. And it has to stay cold. Texas is so hot. You use a fanny pack, keep little them with ice. And I tell them, and my next goal right now is just go to the schools and tell them. And what I tried to go to the schools before, and then they said they didn't want me. But now what I'm going to use and talk to the principals to tell them the story is that I'm going to use it as 2. This is how I want to tell you how a law is passed in Texas.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I like that idea. Yeah.
So it could be in civic class and tell them, this is how a law, this is how I did it. This is how long it took me. You don't have to have an organization. And, first you need to get someone to sponsor you. Then you go into a bill number. You get a bill number, and then it goes to a committee. Depending what type of bill it is. So I'm going to tell them all the steps and talk about it. And at the same time, talk about food allergy.
Oh, I love that. That's a great way to get it in there in a different perspective.
Right. And I'll start here small, in my Buda area in the Hays County, which is Buda, Kyle, San Marcos, and then head out to Austin area and then go on to the, and like I said, I have time. I don't, the only thing I do is my garden and work on my knees, and, walk in the pool, try to, going. But yes. And so I'm like, that's my goal. And I feel this is what God has placed on me, and I know my son is, the 4th of November, I'm having a little celebration with all his friends, because he was in 2 bands called Vatican Beach and Christ Here. And some of them are still in bands and some of them have stopped. But they're going to come, all his friends. And some of the people are coming from far, like Harrison. He's coming all the way from North Carolina. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Harrison. And his wife is going to school there for her getting her doctorate. And then his friend Natalia, she's coming from Michigan. She just got her doctorate in art. So I have people, and then from the Valley in Austin, people are coming from all over, just his friends to celebrate his life and also get this law and dishonor.
That's awesome. All right, our mutual friend Betsy piped in here. Respect 100% over my friend, to you. So Betsy Craig, she was on the show last week, and we were talking just about food allergy safety. So, what have you seen anything in the restaurants that you talked to that? Oh, where was my question? That people have shown compassion towards you and understanding what you're doing. And realizing this law has come into effect, have you seen anybody really looking to help with?
What surprised me, some national restaurants, like, for example, IHOP, Cheddar, some restaurants already have food allergy awareness posters in their kitchen that it's a national because of their restaurant. And and a lot of them, when I talk to the restaurants, the managers come out because I first end up talking to the waitress, and then she goes and gets the manager, and they're saying, oh yes, we're doing this. Yes. They didn't know about the law, but they're telling me that they do take precaution that when so some people, I think it's the restaurant like my son went to was a small mom and pop restaurant, but these national restaurants, larger chain, they are taking steps. They say that as soon as somebody says they have food allergies, that they tell the waitress or waiter to pass that information in the back to the chefs. So everybody, they take those steps. The ones that I've talked to, the bigger chains, not the mom and pop shops,
Mm-hmm.
But hope those are the ones maybe that we need to reach out to,
Mm-hmm.
And that they are taking precaution. When a lot of them, they always talk about gluten. Oh yes, my sister, blah, 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 has gluten. And I always tell them, you cannot confuse the two. Gluten is sensitive, and people, that's what they always come back to about gluten,
Mm-hmm.
And I think my son's case, I think when he would always ask his friends that he would, wherever he went, and he looked younger for his age,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he was slender, I think the thing is that they probably thought here's a picky kid. And I think, and most of the people that I see that have passed, a lot of them, the younger ones, since there's more male than female, because I feel a female can have a young lady, she can carry her epi in her purse. A young guy, that is not cool. Where am I going to carry my epi?
Right.
We need to get that across to these young people. It is important. Something cool, leather, whatever, something,
Yeah.
carry your head with a little ice in there, keep it cool, and pass that information. And that a lot of, they see him as being picky. And I think that's what was my son. Because I remember one time we went to a restaurant a month before he passed, and he always asked and wanted to make sure. Did you ask your chef? And so the waiter, I'll never forget his terms. And he said he goes, oh man, you just don't like peanuts, huh? That's how the kid responded. And he goes, oh, you don't like peanuts, huh? And then my son like, what? Goes, no. He goes, I'm allergic, I told you. That means I don't want to end up in the hospital tonight. Do you understand that? And the manager came, what's going on? And then he's like, he thinks I don't like peanuts. I told him it's because I'm allergic. I just wanted to make sure, and he is Chicago and come out, even though he loved to go every summer to visit his dad. So I guess he when they came, he would get very, in people's, when they would, and his friends told me, they go, we didn't know at his funeral, they go, at his wake, they go, he would wipe everything down his car. He had wipes and then his girlfriend said he would make use mouthwash and everything when he would come. And I was like, really? And they, oh yeah, he was. He was a hypochondriac, and I go, I would bake a cake, and he would always ask, Mom, are you sure I go, honey, I would ever. There's no peanuts that come in this house, no peanut butter. Everybody knows in the family.
How old was he when you found out he was allergic to peanuts?
He was 3 years old, and I was making cookies. He did not even eat them. It was the smell.
Wow.
And his eyes swelled up, his lips. And my reaction, he was on the floor watching cartoons, and I thought he got bit by a spider or something. And took him to emergency, and I said, my son got an knee swelling up more. Something bit him. And they, right away, they knew.
Really? Wow.
They said, and they gave him the test and on his back, and they told me, I go, allergic to peanuts. I go, he didn't eat peanuts. And I go, he just had his cereal. I gave him a little egg and toast this morning. And I go, I was making some cookies. And they go, you peanut butter cookies? And I said, yes, but he didn't eat. I hadn't even put them in the oven. It was the dough. And
wow.
It was just the smell. And after that, he had before he died, his last reaction was in San Antonio at a hospital. Because I took him there because he was besides allergies, he also had asthma, which is very common with food allergies. Mm-hmm. But that's when he started with his first panic attacks. So that's when I took him. I brought him to a hospital in San Antonio to have him tested. I was like, what's going on? Why is he? At that same hospital, it was a hospital where they were testing him for his panic attacks. They gave him a chocolate cake, which was contaminated with peanut butter on the side.
Wow.
They had to rush him to a regular hospital.
Wow.
And he did not, When they called me, when I got there to the hospital, he's 16 years old, he looked like the Elephant Man that they show on TV. All blown up, 120 pounds. He looked like he weighed 200 pounds. And I think after that, he was more cautious.
Right.
Because he didn't have a reaction for 8 years. He was, like I said, they told me his friends that when he would walk into a party, he would always tell people, is there peanuts? Remember, I cannot be around peanuts. Mm-hmm. I can't. And and he goes, well, I'll be outside. I'm not coming in. And they said, because being a musician and all, they said, we always just thought he wanted attention. He was like a showman,
Mm-hmm.
I can't be. And that's, other kids did not, when they go, we did not take him. So we didn't understand. And just, oh my God, he's drama king, because he was also in theater. So they thought he was just a drama king. That's why it was his nickname.
So his death is not only his propelled education to his friends who doubted him in a way, but then also pushed his mother to channel her grief to go to the Texas legislator and pass this. And now you're going to be at the White House, I'm sure.
Well, the thing is, there's some, and I'm not the only mom who has done this. There's the Elias law that passed, in New Jersey, I think it was New York, Thomas, that his son died at a daycare center. He has gotten law passed in New York, and now he had it passed in Illinois. Georgina, she has passed after her son. So it's a shame that as a parent that we don't do this. So I'm trying to get this information to parents because truthfully, I didn't worry about my son with, because I thought I knew he was very outspoken. In grade school, they called him the peanut boy. He owned it. He goes, yes, I'm allergic to peanuts. You better not bring. So any party, he would stand up in class. Remember, you can't bring peanuts, nothing with peanuts. That's, no cookies, nothing. He would tell everybody on field. He was not shy. He spoke for himself. So I was not worried, as a mom, as a teen, you're worried. I was worried as the things like, please don't, are you wearing, protection, are you wearing your jacket? I didn't want him to get anybody pregnant. Don't drink and drive. Please don't drink, don't do drugs. Those are the things I was worried about. And like every mother, it never crossed my mind that my son could die of food allergies. I was worried always about his asthma because it would take his breath. That's what I was worried about, but never because he was so cautious.
Right.
And I didn't, I never knew that so many people died of food allergies until after my son.
Wow.
People don't realize that so many people do. Now, it's like right during May, a young lady in Texas, in Lavon, Texas, 22 years old, she was supposed to graduate that Saturday in May. It was 2 weeks before the bill passed. She went out to a restaurant to celebrate her graduation. Instead, her parents, Allison Pickering, she was supposed to graduate, and instead her parents were burying her. Same thing. She went out to a restaurant, asked, and it was 2 peanuts. This should not be happening. These young people, something that's so basic, prevention, this shouldn't be happening. And these young people that are dying of, the word is out about fentanyl, about all these young people dying of fentanyl. They don't realize, I guess because, I know there's hundreds that are dying of fentanyl, but even though there's 15 children a year of food allergies, that's way too much. Right. That's preventable. That is something they did not ask to be allergic to. They didn't ask this. And they're doing everything they can. We need to help them. What can we do? And the word needs to get out in restaurants associations, and the public health to make sure we start baby steps.
Yep.
In the steps, if we can first bring awareness, and then maybe we can bring out that just like food is labeled when we buy now, maybe at restaurants, the menus too.
Yeah.
Now,
have you communicated with the Texas Restaurant Association about this?
Well, they were there at the health committee. They were not for it or against it. And I talked to them. They weren't against it. So that I was happy for that. So the Texas Association. So I did get to talk to them when they spoke at the health committee.
Okay.
And they, they weren't against the bill and they were not for it either. Okay. Both of them. They were neutral.
Okay.
So I don't see no reason that any association, this is not going to cost the state any money. This is not going to cost what it is. The cost to download a poster? The cost maybe less than $1. You go to a printer. If they don't have access to a printer, you go to Office Depot, Office Max, and you download the printer.
Right.
you know, and, you know, if we start, like I said, baby steps, you know, I know the mothers, they want more. Parents of the food allergy, they want more. They want all the menus labeled. They want, you know, they want a lot more because, of course, they're scared, and I don't blame them.
Exactly.
But the way how laws work and how people are always against everything, I don't understand why they would be against this, but took me 9 years. They were against it.
Yeah.
I had a lot of people. So I had 36 people that voted no against this.
Wow.
And representatives out of the 140, 36 voted no. And I was, do I waste my time asking them why? And some of those representatives that voted no, when I would go to their offices, their clerks had food allergies. These young clerks.
Wow.
Yes. And these young clerks, they were college students, you know, they're working there, and they're telling me, oh, I'm so happy you got this, and that they're allergic. They're telling me what they're allergic to. And I was surprised, and I said, well, make sure that you vote yes. Did they vote yes? There was 4 of them that I knew that they had clerks that had food allergies.
Wow.
They voted no. And they told me, those clerks, that, you know, when the people that work in there, oh yeah, when we go out to lunch, you know, we have to be careful what we bring back to the office because, yeah, we know she's allergic. And I was like, she had somebody working in her office and she still voted no, and he did? How could that happen?
Wow. That's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah. That's just, it's
insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
insane. Yes.
They made it everything. They try to make it political. Mm-hmm. And this is not political. Why? Why do they want to make everything political?
That's a very good question, Belinda. All right. Well, we need to wrap this up, and I'm so proud of you, and I will be there with a cane to help, you know, a replacement cane if you need it. Whatever you need to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm going to put it up here again. Everybody can reach you by Belinda at sergionopeanuts@gmail.com.
Correct. Yeah, and thank you for inviting me and getting the word out. The more that people know about this, and I feel, you know, we can get this done to get it federal, and it's just a simple, basic poster, and that every food handler exam in the United States talks about food allergies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know, some very basic, so that when next time a customer comes into their restaurant, a waitress will say, oh, she'll remember, oh, I don't want to be the reason that this person's death or going to the hospital, because she already knows. If someone's asking her and she doesn't know that it could cause someone's death, they might not take it as serious. But if she reads it and sees it every day on a poster, she's going to take it more, or he's going to take it more serious.
You are a force to be reckoned with. Watch out, Capitol Hill.
Thank you, Tracy.
You're welcome, Belinda. And everyone, I put it up here if you want to help her. And I know you said before the show, the next states you're going to go to are Chicago or Illinois
and
Oklahoma.
I'm going to start with them, and also at the same time do federal. But I'm going to wait till after November to the elections to start my campaign, because I don't want to reach out to somebody and they only have a month left.
Right. Exactly. All right. So
this is not political. I'm reaching out to both Republican, Democrat, Independent. It is not political, people.
It is like that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
You are a fantastic mom. He would be so proud of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. And actually there's a bonus episode tomorrow, Belinda, a little bit on the same topic, is a chef from Las Vegas, and she actually...
Oh, yes, I know him.
Oh, no, well, different one. Sarah Thompson, she actually has a celiac safe kitchen at her restaurant in Vegas. So she wants to make sure that everybody has an inclusive experience in her kitchens as well. So
great.
it'll be interesting to talk to her. So yeah. All right.
Okay,
So
thank you.
bonus episode tomorrow. Everybody, thank you. Until next time, stay safe and eat well.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.